Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Parkitect, where we are going to do the second scenario in Parkitect. And so, in the last episode, we did Maple Meadows, and we got this awesome castle trophy right over here. So, in this episode, we're going to be doing the second one, and we're going to be kind of referencing the first one, not going into the park, but just reflecting on it and saying what I'm going to be doing better in this one. So if you haven't seen that one, make sure to check it out. There will be a link in the description. And if I can get it to work, if I learn how, maybe one of those like information boxes in the top corner. But that's only if I figure it out. Hopefully I do though. Enough about that though. So the second scenario is Chanute Airfields, and the description is a small airfield has been abandoned and now its land has become available for use. This looks like an ideal spot for an amusement park if you can work with the limited space. The old airport structures are landmarks and need to be preserved. And so the goals are to have at least 250 guests in your park, and the optionals are to sell at least 400 park tickets and complete all non-optionals by the end of June year 2. So we'll load into this scenario right now, and right off the bat you can see that we have this building right here, and these buildings have to be kept as landmarks, so we're going to have to base our theme off of this airport style structure, maybe like hangars or any stuff like that. But it's actually a pretty long park. It goes pretty far, but it's skinny, so we're going to have to work with that. And what rides we have a plane carousel, which is a different type of carousel, but we're definitely going to use it since it is an airport themed park. And then for coasters, we have junior coaster, mini coaster, and a wild mouse coaster. And I think the plan is to put a wild mouse coaster here so that we're going to block off this area and expand this way. So, and then for our thrill rides, we have basically the same ones we had last episode, and then no transportation and a log flume, but we'll probably not use that. But without further ado, let's get into this time lapse and see what I can whip up in this airfield. Okay, so wasting no time, we're gonna go straight in and do our first flat ride, which is this plane carousel, and it obviously fits this airport theme very well, and it also fits that terminal tower building, whatever you want to call it. It fits the sizing of that very well, so I put it there, and it's kind of just like a center point, bringing the theme together in the very front. So we're gonna have half the queue covered with a kind of half hanger, just protection from the rain, kind of giving it a little bit more theming. But I really like this area, and then we're gonna put some area lights in it so people can see in the dark. But we're not really gonna touch the main street, or not the main street, but the main entrance walkway. Just kind of some bushes kind of block off the area, since we're gonna put a little vending machine area, not machine, but vendors close to it. But here we are going into the second ride already, which is going to be this Wild Mouse coaster. And I actually went with the split station theme for this ride. I really like it. I think it helps with the block breaks one and the amount of people that you can push through per train, because it's the train is moving so much faster. There's always somebody getting on, so one train waiting and then another train getting exiting people. So that is a perfect operations. And then the layout for this is kind of classic. It goes up a hill, and then does a bunch of zigzags, and then a couple of airtime hills going into breaks, and then the station. So the station will actually not get covered, but the queue will get covered in a later state when we go and do one of the later rides. But right now, I'm just gonna try and put in some block breaks so we can add more coasters, and we're practically done with this coaster. So we're just gonna make the little queue for it, and then we're gonna block off the back part of it since I don't want to expand that way anymore. So we're gonna put in some trees and some fences, which will happen in just a sec. But we are actually gonna do planting everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but a good amount of places. And then that is going to lead into the next bit, which is the vendors. And I put a bunch of shops down. The first ones I did was the information and ATM, that's what it is. And that was actually in that gray nook next to the main street area. And then I have a hot dog drink and balloon shop next to a restroom shop. But the big main, what do you call them? Stands, I guess you would say. They actually got blocked off and they caused a big amount of trouble for me. So it took a long time to figure out what was wrong. I actually cut a bunch of it out since it took so long. But we'll head back to that, and I will point out to that I will point that problem out to you when we get there. But right now we're just gonna spruce up some areas, and we're gonna be coming back to this lighting and benching a lot since vandalism in this park was extremely high for some reason. But here we are. We're gonna actually start making the building for these vending stalls, and the issue that I ran into will happen in just a sec after I put in the roofing for it. But I actually covered up the front of the shops, and something I didn't know is if you do that in Parkitect, then they will not connect to the pathing, and you can see right there that I did that. So it took me like a half hour in real life that I cut out because it wasn't connecting, and I had to look it up and figure out what was wrong. I'm kind of like looking at myself like, bruh, but that is just in the past, and I learned from that, so that is great. And now we're jumping back over to the people's perspective of what they're not liking, and we're trying to fix their decoration rating, so since they can see the backstage area. So here is me doing a bunch of planting for the beginning area, and there's some of the vandalism I talked about. But we're gonna go in, and now we're gonna do some more rides. So here is the first major thrill ride that we have. It's the Scrambler, and this ride will actually not get a cover. It's just kind of in the middle of the whole area, and we're actually gonna have expand the path behind it. And so here's me doing a little bit more scenery work. So yeah, this time lapse is a lot of jumping around, just fixing a bunch of stuff that needs to be fixed. But right there's a little bit more vandalism. But here we are going into our very last ride for this time lapse, which is the Ferris wheel. And for this is actually going to the queue is going to lead into the cover for the Wild Mouse queue since they're back to back. And so the theme for this one is kind of like a maintenance shed. So, and it's not going to be a curved roof, it's going to be a slanted roof, and we're doing all that. It's just going to be the gray kind of iron feel to it. And then that actually does kind of tie the two rides together and ties that corner off. I don't know if I like it all just gray, but then again, airports are kind of dull. There's not much life to it. So where I can, I'm putting in some trees and stuff. But that is practically it for there. The rest of it is going to just be figuring other things out. So while we finish this off, we are going to be researching some other rides. And speaking of the other rides, I really am trying to find that launched coaster because I want to put that on the other side of the park, kind of going down the runway as you're taking off. But I don't know if I'm going to get that. I haven't yet, so hopefully I don't run out of money so I can actually build that and keep researching it so I can actually get it. But here's me going back to the stalls once again, trying to figure out the problem, and then we're gonna put in a couple more things back in the backstage area and then cover it up so people can't see it. But what we're doing right now is replacing everything so we can try and figure this out. It just took forever, and I can't really say that enough. It just took so long. I tried literally everything. I actually had to look it up, as I already said, but um, we're going around, and then actually the reason why the balloon shack was getting replaced was because I didn't know when you actually opened it that balloons would pop out the top for some reason. So I did that, and there's the cut. I fixed everything, and you can probably see that there's a big fence now that people can't look back to. And we're entering the very last part, which is putting this staff room and training room in. So here is that, and we're just about done. So I'll see you in a real time portion. Okay, so we are here while the park is running, so we only have a couple of rides, but we have a good amount of people, about a little more than halfway, 146 people. Um, So the carousel seems to be the most popular ride here. Oh no, actually, the carousel, or not the Ferris wheel does. Wow, it's a big queue for the Ferris wheel. I don't think, yeah, this one's nothing. If you look in there, there's like nothing. That's because the operations for this coaster are awesome. We'll ride that in a second, but we have a good amount of money right now, kind of staying around the 5,000. Our shops over here are running, and the plan is to expand over in this area. But why don't we give the coaster a ride really quick? So if I click, oh, not him, I click on you and I click here. Alright, so let's just zoom in here and while people get on. So this ride, I would ride, is a pretty standard layout, as I already said before. A pretty fast one though. You do hit some turns very fast. So here we go, just kind of curving. I'm surprised there's nobody in the front of the car though. So when we hit a block brake, but it's a pretty great small ride that you can add to a park, and then you block here, and you barely have to wait in the brake area, which is awesome. So after that, actually, why don't we check our research? So they're working on a wooden coaster right now, which is not what I wanted. So maybe I will be able to obtain the launched coaster. Maybe not. It just depends if I want to hit the goals. Since we and the goals actually, we're about more than halfway there for the main goal. But sell 400 park tickets. We have 205 sold, and then non-optional goals by end of year 2 June. We are in year 2 of January. So that's going to be super duper close. We might be able to do it, but it will definitely be close to get everything done before January year 2. Then again, the park is running very well, and we already have half the people, so we can definitely get there. So why don't we jump back in and reach that goal? So jumping right back into the time lapse, we're going to start it off with a small restroom block with nothing else around it, just a small little hangar. And actually, I couldn't get the back part of this hangar to fit in within the boundaries, so I had to make it a super skinny one too. And I just decided to put some foliage behind it, as it will go along the whole backside of the park. And I was actually debating to put a balloon shop, but the balloon shop would require a depot or people walking through all the paths to get to it. And the people walking on the paths decreases your decoration rating, and putting a depot in costs a lot of money. So I decided to just not put one in there. So we're just gonna fill it in with some foliage, and we just put down our next flat ride, which is actually the Gravitron, which is an indoor ride, and it actually will help with our rain protection rating. So that's awesome. But if you look closely at all the rides, all of them have been changed to a blue and red, and that is because I wanted it to kind of fit the plane carousel um, colors without changing the plane's carousel. And the plane carousel's like middle podium thing where it spins around, that was blue on the ride, so I just decided to make all the main colors of the rides blue. And so there's the next ride, which is the jumper ride, and that is going to be our last flat ride in this park. And I just tried to place down that balloon shop, and it did not work, or it wasn't gonna work, I should say. So that is basically the end of the balloon shop, sadly. And then here we are, just doing a little bit of a queue cover for this jumper ride. The same as the plane carousel queue cover, actually. Just kind of a hanger with some lights. It's actually identical if the length matches up. But that is basically it. And right here, I'm just fixing the tiny bit of vandalism that happened. But as a result of this time lapse here, there was like barely any vandalism. So that was super surprising to me. And the Gravitron ride is actually super popular, which was also pretty cool. But here we are going into our coaster, and I did not get the launched coaster, which is kind of sad. But I got this vertical drop coaster, which is kind of like Hang Time, I guess, at Knott's Berry Farms. But we're just gonna start it. It's gonna loop around kind of right next to the padding, and it's gonna go up and then down into a loop and a custom layout that I made. But I will say that I did take a loan for this coaster, and the only reason for taking that loan was to make sure I could do it all in one go, including the building. So there was no reason for me to actually take it. I did have enough money to make it. I just decided I'm just gonna do it in one go. And so right now we're working on the layout for this, and I did try to make a zero G roll from custom parts, and it really didn't work. So I went for this kind of corkscrew, and then there's going to be a bunch of helixes, and I tried to get as much airtime as I could in it as well, just trying to make it kind of an intense roller coaster, since the Wild Mouse really isn't that intense. But the majority of this second time lapse is going to be working on this coaster, whether it's this layout, which took quite a while, or the station, which is really unique, and I'll talk about that once we get there. But right here, we're making a helix, and we're just kind of trying to lose momentum. It comes into the brakes pretty fast. I wish I could have made a longer layout. I just didn't know where to put anything. So I just kind of went with that. And we will ride this in our outro little sum up, wrap up. So you guys can see that in a sec. But just trying to loop the layout back around. And there's actually going to have to be a lot of fencing going in around this coaster to make sure people can't go and run into it because it is so close to so many different things. But here we are going into the brake run. And let's say that this coaster is actually, I would want to ride this in real life, but the station is just super unique. I took a bunch of the parts from the station or the building that we had to keep as a like kind of landmark. So I used the theme of that instead of a hangar theme, which kind of gives it a little bit of a different vibe. I now that I think about it, I wish I would have put like a little control tower on the top of it, but I didn't think of that, so it's just kind of a bunch of just rectangles. But here I am trying to fit in a bunch of the queue and the exit pathing, and reason that this a lot of it's going to have to get covered is because this exit path is over the fencing that blocks off our little depot and stuff, and it actually gives you a negative decoration rating, so I have to block that off so people can't see it. But that's no big deal. Here I am just trying to open it so I can get some more cash, and the coaster is actually wrong. So, or it's not working because I put the lift hill going over the first drop, which didn't really work out. But here I am. I actually placed that plane off camera, but I didn't like it, and so I moved it over here, and I don't know why it took me so long to place that, but it did. And then I actually renamed this liftoff, just kind of a plain feel. I wish it was a launch coaster; it would have made more sense. But a vertical drop coaster works well, I would say. So here I am making the station now, and in progress, you will see that it just looks like a bunch of different boxes. And for now, that's okay until I actually start doing the decoration. And you can see I'm just kind of taking pieces from the other building, the landmark building, and then I'm fitting archways in here with some black borders. And a lot of these archways are actually going to be tall archways to fit the stairs. And but really, there's really not much else to this station. It's pretty modern, I would say. There's a lot of height variation that you're gonna see, but the colors actually took a while to get done. It was just kind of trying to pinpoint each color the exact same. And this is where the height variation came in. I was trying to figure out a height for the station, and I couldn't. It's actually a different height than the queue, so I went with elevated station compared to the rest of the building. And I like how it gives it an extra kind of slope on the roofing. So the roofing is going to be this steel blue, light blue type of iron. It's kind of like the Parkitect. I mean the Planet Coaster metal roofing. The like sci-fi metal roofing anyway. So with that, the roofing is practically done. We're just gonna do some more finishing touches with some trimming, and I might actually go in off camera and put in some windows maybe, just to kind of give it more of a control tower feel. But then we're just gonna go back behind the coaster and just do a little bit more foliage, some fencing off, And that is practically it for this time lapse. So in a couple of seconds, we will head to a um, end of course, not really end of course, but end of time lapse, end of scenario, live part. You know what I mean. I'll see you guys there in a second. Alright, so here we are in the final stage of this park, and if you look at the park total amount of people, we have 246 people, and we're in year 2 of June. I was able to save the confetti for you guys in this scenario, so I'm really proud of myself for that, but I'll put this into play mode so we can actually get that confetti. So yeah, it's actually a pretty crowded park. It's looking pretty nice. The coaster looks really fun, actually. And there we go. We have 250 guests in our park. What else? Is it going to tell us? We completed it by June of year 2, which is another one of those goals. And did we sell 400 park tickets? We're super close. We got 394. So we got like 6 for that. But there's the confetti. Yay, we did the scenario. Let's see if we can hit this really quick. 2 more. People, please come in. Come in. Come on. 1 more. We just need 1 more, and we got it. There we go. So, there it is. Everything, all the goals are completed. I don't know how much we're going to be able to do that. We really cut it close with this one. But, if you just look at everything, this area back here is not as crowded as up here. But then again, there's more shops up here. But this coaster is looking really nice. And, you know, something I actually didn't do was put in windows. I totally forgot to do that. So, why don't I do that right here on camera? If I go click here. Click. Then we'll come back up here. But, in 1 second, once I do this, oh, wrong thing. We will take a ride on this coaster. Oh. It's so much more beautiful now, I think. It's just, no, I don't like that. So we'll just fix this really quick. Gosh, why isn't my clicking working? My right click isn't working. Gosh. Alright, so why don't we take a ride with this? And the operations for this coaster is actually really good. And the queue is packed. This is probably easily the best ride we have in our park. Alright, so why don't we zoom in here? And I'll bring this off to the side. Nope, it's not locked on. Okay, so we'll just ride this really quick. I'll zoom out a little bit. So the initial problem with this coaster when I was starting it in the time lapse, the chain lift actually went over the hill, and so it wasn't able to make it through the loop. So that's just what I was talking about in the time lapse. But this second, like after this part right here, it looks like a pretty intense roller coaster. And then we have this weird kind of half corkscrew, and then it hits the brakes really hard, but that's okay. And they get to wait for a couple of seconds as the drop goes right over them. So that's pretty much the coaster. It's really awesome. I would ride this. But everything else is looking pretty good. I wish that the Wild Mouse queue was more packed, but you know, not many people like it. So that's practically it. Why don't we save this and go to our main menu and check out what we get. So this is our trophy. We have basically the landmark that we had to work with, and it looks like 2 planes. So we'll just kind of click out of this, and we have 2 options now. So we have one in a lake and one that seems to be in kind of a desert. So we'll look at these. What does this one say? So this is Victoria Lake. 300 guests is the total. No loans. Okay. So I've used loans in the last 2 parks, so that's going to be a little bit difficult. And this one's way more difficult with 500 guests. Oh, and look, there's a little plane too. So I think the next one we're going to do is Victoria Lake, since it's a bit of a step up from this. So I hope to see you all in Victoria Lake, the next episode of Parkitect. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.